Across the board, we have Jim Higginbottom on the top. He'll be playing Storm against Tannen Grace's Grixis Delver. In the middle matchup, it's going to be a value battle. James Wohlomacher on Obzon versus Harlan Fear on Jeskai. And in the standard seats, we do have Teamer Energy versus Esper Aggro.
These are both decks that certainly have elements of trying to get ahead and stay ahead. They want to be the first one on the board, though I have to figure that Joey Mander's deck is better at playing from behind, given the Kozilek's Return, Elder Deep Fiend, and just kind of bigger spells.
Now start off on Servant of the Conduit. Gets 2 energy, and then it is Fatal Pushed. In this matchup, we may see some pressure on Kevin to be the attacking deck. If we get to a point of Elder Deep Fiend and Kozilek's Return, Joey should be a favorite.
Right. Kevin has choice of Glorybound Initiate or Scrap Heap Scrounger this turn. Goes with the Scrounger.
Somewhat expected. So that to me says he's expecting that it might get killed.
Mm-hmm. Good chance that there's going to be some 2-power creature on the other side of the battlefield. The Scrounger pretty happily attacks. Initiate, not so much.
Another Servant of the Conduit for Manor. And this is an interesting line he's on because Manor has one of his 2 copies of Kozilek's Return in hand. Balancing that with all these X2s, I guess from his deck and Kevin's, can be difficult.
With how quickly Kevin snapped off the Fatal Push on the first Servant, you might expect that he plays another one, and that ends up being a really good position with your return. And if not, you know, your opponent is more likely to commit into the sweeper if you have your own 2/2.
Kevin plays Spire of Industry and then passes. That's a source of blue mana, which Kevin is disguising here. And what I like is that if Joey doesn't know that Kevin's on Esper Aggro, right now you'd think Kevin was on Mardu Vehicles. He's actually doing a bluff here.
Right. If he actually has a Spell Queller, that'd be really good.
He does. No, this is nice.
Yeah, as long as he dodges a 5-mana spell, which there's really not a ton in the main deck here. Yeah. In fact, it looks like just Elder Deep Fiend going outside of the range.
And look at this. He's going to be, it looks like Chandra Torch of Defiance from Joey. And yeah, you'd expect your opponent's playing Mardu. And this Spell Queller, if Kevin makes it, is really going to catch Joey.
Kevin also has the option to just aggro Queller here and jam at the Chandra.
Chandra pluses and makes Harnessed Lightning. This is even, oof.
Yeah, this gets both.
Wow.
Really well navigated by Kevin Jones there.
And that puts the 5th point of power on the board. And there goes Chandra. A huge play for Kevin Jones. And now the untap kills Chandra, plays Gideon.
Things are really going Kevin ways now.
Kevin, that was...
Spire was great.
Yeah, Spire.
Not countering Chandra was great.
Well, he had the island too, but he played Spire.
Right.
For the bluff.
That was well worth 1 life.
Makes the Knight token. Now we're back to Joey. Things, since he last cast that Chandra, things have taken a turn for the worse.
Yeah. And Kozilek's Return on the front side, that's not big enough to kill the Queller.
Here's some creatures. It'll be Harnessed Lightning on the Queller. That brings back the other Queller. So 2 creatures. The other Harnessed Lightning kills the other blocker. Servant hits Gideon down to 2.
And with the Spell Queller down, now the Kozilek's turn a bit more powerful. Other card in hand is Elder Deep Fiend. Might see him make a play to try to emerge that off of the Servant before he does anything.
Kevin ups the Gideon and attacks for 8. Joey's down to 9. Kevin plays Toolcraft Exemplar, holding up Spell Queller, and passes. You're thinking an upkeep Deep Fiend? Or
you want to, I suppose, if you upkeep Deep Fiend, you take the mana sources out of the way, and your Kozilek's Return will clear out all the blockers. You'll be able to tack in at the Gideon.
Yeah. Now, it's good on Kevin's side to play around Kozilek's Return that he's just started attacking with the Gideon as opposed to making 2/2s.
And he's putting on a lot of pressure. Joey down to 9.
just says go. Looking at a possible Elder Deep Fiend. Joey does have the mana for the play.
Yeah, doesn't pull the trigger in the upkeep.
He's hoping to run one back on Kevin. Little bluff of his own. Not every player is expecting Elder Deep Fiend out of Teamer Energy. And Glory-bound Initiate. Let's see. Kevin says he pluses the Gideon, turns it into a 5/5. Goes to attacks.
Yeah, almost cast a creature. That'd be some weird sequencing after plussing the Gideon. Get more information this way.
Goes to attacks. Joey's going to tap and emerge Elder Deep Fiend from Servant to the Conduit. 5/6. We'll tap. Let's see how many creatures, how many lands.
If he just taps the creatures, it definitely makes it look like he doesn't have the Kozilek's Return, and Kevin has a good amount of mana to work with on his turn anyway.
Taps all the creatures plus the Spire of Industry. And you see with two strong players like this game being played on there's a lot of bluffing and chess really going on here.
Kevin has picked up another Spell Queller, though. That's going to make this game a lot harder for Joey.
He does have it. Joey's hand on the other side is just a couple of Whirler Virtuosos.
A little light on energy, though he would have enough for 2 Thopters here after the Virtuoso trigger. Some presence in the air would be nice. His life total is not particularly safe.
Shake of the head. Joey fires off Kozilek's Return. And Kevin has the Spell Queller.
Joey not happy about that one.
No.
And it looks like Kevin will just have a lethal attack on his turn.
Elder Deep Fiend attacks Gideon. And Kevin makes the jump block. Joey will scoop it. Game 1 goes to Kevin Jones and Esper Aggro.
That was impressive stuff. That Spell Queller off the Spire of Industry, he sold that very effectively.
Yeah. And managed to play around the Kozilek's Return. So they'll be going to a second game here. Let's look at some sideboards on Kevin Jones's side. 3 Negate, 2 Fumigate, 2 Kalitas, 2 Fragmentize, 2 Declaration in Stone, a Sorengrim Nemesis, a Dusk to Dawn, an Aethersphere Harvester, and then the 3rd copy of Fatal Push.
So you saw in that game, Kevin was really able to leverage tempo, was able to use Gideon Ally as Zendikar, really pull ahead on value. The opposing deck is very creature heavy, typically. You saw Servant of the Conduit. I didn't really see energy payoffs, but you saw Chandra. You saw enough. You certainly know it's some build of Teamer Energy. Unlikely that he wants to go for a Fumigate plan against this deck.
Yeah, because the deck's Elder Deep Fiending, it plays at instant speed. It's pretty explosive. Fumigate won't get the value he wants.
Biggest pickups seem to be the 2 Declaration in Stone. I imagine that he looks at that and little else.
Yeah, do you like Fatal Push here? It can hit a Servant of the Conduit or a Long Tusk Cub.
On the draw, having it to turn those off, that is pretty strong. Yeah, good chance you go for the Fatal Push as well.
And on Joey's side, he has 3 Negates of his own. The other 2 Kozilek's Return, that could bring him up to 4. 2 Glorybringer, 2 Confiscation Coup, 2 Magma Spray, 2 Cut to Ribbons, a Dispel, and an Essence Scatter. He has a lot of ways to transform his deck.
Yeah, Joey actually has a lot to like out of the sideboard. More Kozilek's Return. That kills so many creatures that Kevin's playing. Glorybringer is excellent, again, against Spell Queller. That heads-up matchup is so good for Glorybringer. You've seen Scrap Heap Scrounger. Magma Spray is pretty good. Kills a lot of the other stuff in Kevin's deck as well. And Cut to Ribbons is another good removal spell that can also serve as a way to end the game.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go for all of these removal spells and become just more value-oriented, or is it just...
I'm pretty into all the removal spells, and honestly, I'm somewhat in, but not completely sold. Probably too mana inefficient, but I would be considering Confiscation Coup. It's probably just too slow.
Yeah, it's not a horrible idea, though. The more mid-range Kevin's deck gets, the more you're interested in that. You might see Joey bring it in.
In matchups where your opponent is playing Glorybringer, it just seems absurdly good.
Right. So if you missed some of the action from today over at Star City Games' YouTube page, we have recaps of all the action here on the SCG Tour. Well, so we have full events and videos on demand of all the rounds today. In addition to that, we have a lot more to offer. We have our Versus series, which is our top players from the tour playing matches against each other. Magic Online playtesting, where players develop decks. The Commander Versus, the best of our SCG tour, and a lot more. You can find all of that on our YouTube page, youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Kevin taking his sweet time sideboarding here. There is a good amount to consider. You've seen Elder Deep Fiend, and that does really put the hurt on his deck. Carefully crafting a sideboard plan. It is possible in some of these games Dusk to Dawn would be relevant, and a big part of that, not only does it kill Elder Deep Fiend, but you can rebuy all the creatures that get swept away by Kozilek's return. It's pretty cumbersome, not great on the mana, does kill a lot of his own creatures, given that he's on Scrounger,
Yeah.
Glorybound Initiate. The front side is actually kind of awkward.
Again, something like a black-green deck, I'm really interested in this Kozilek's Return Elder Deep Fiend sideboard. I don't think it's terrible either against Esper Aggro, but because Esper Aggro has cards like Gideon and Spell Queller, I'm not sure that he wants the entire 4.
I've really been into Dusk to Dawn out of the Blue-White Monument deck, just because the front side doesn't really kill your creatures, and you can just cast it and then get to the backside. Out of the Esper Aggro deck, though, the front side, even when the front side has to be very good for you to want it in this deck.
Some updates from across the board. Harlan Fear, with Jeskai control, wins the Modern Control Mirror Game 1. Game 1 on Legacy, though, goes the way of Storm. Despite being a longer game, James Higginbottom does manage to win over Tannen's Grixis Delver.
And if the Delver deck does not apply pressure quickly, Storm will make the best use of its time. This deck can beat a lot of counter spells. The thing it can't beat is actually just dying. And Delver deck's not the fastest decks in Legacy.
Yeah, just about no defensive elements to the Storm deck, so just any creature is just repeated damage.
Right. Yeah, frequently the creature-heavy draws out of the Delver deck are kind of mulligans too, so there's a lot to consider in that matchup.
So for Kevin Jones here, now playing with Tannen Grace and Harlan Fear from Kingston, New York. For the 29-year-old, he has 10 open top 8s and 2 open wins. Recent Grand Prix winner and member of the U.S. Nationals team.
A lot of accomplishments. He's older than I thought he was. 29 is Kevin Jones. Not dramatically older, but older. Eternal Weekend Legacy champion with Blue-Red Delver. Grixis Delver and Modern being one of his open wins as well.
And you really, Kevin, one of those players with a pretty defined style when it comes to deck selection. Not surprising at all to see him play Esper Aggro. Originally, when you first started seeing him on the tour, it was Jeskai was his style, but blue aggressive decks seem to be where he wants to be in every metagame.
And there's also a common thread. Tempo-oriented decks with 3 increment damage sources. Stuff that chips in for 3. It's kind of a magic number for these tempo decks.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when Kevin plays the tempo decks, he frequently likes to add additional aggressive elements to them. You know, taking. We first saw him when he would play a Jeskai black deck and then just would add more Mantis Riders, more burn to it, for example, cutting some of the control for it.
Yeah, Mantis Rider being his other open win in Standard.
All right, game 2 underway. Joey will be on the play. No plays on the first 2 turns here for Joey. It suggests that he's gone toward this control role on the board. No, I'd imagine when he does that, some number, maybe Servants stay in, but the Long Tusk Cubs are likely to be in the sideboard.
Yeah, he's got a Harness Lightning in hand. You would like to hit a Glorybound Initiate there. And his deck is pretty heavy on 3s generally.
Yeah, that's actually a nice play from Kevin. If he wants to play to tie up Joey's mana, Joey's cards could be Essence Scatters and Harness Lightnings. That's pretty likely there. And for Kevin to play Heart of Kiran as opposed to another 2-drop into it.
And the heart just hits the hardest, too.
Yeah. It lines up well.
And Kevin has drawn one of his main deck, 2 main deck copies of Archangel Avacyn. That one can really be a blowout against Kozilek's Return.
Yeah, absolutely. Over to Kevin Jones. Third land. You see he has Avacyn, a Scrapheap Scrounger in hand.
Now with Joey having 2 energy in his pool here, that makes crewing the heart much less appealing.
Yeah, he's worried about Harness Lightning being able to take it down.
Right.
So Kevin just says go. Represents Spell Queller, to be sure. Don't believe he actually has it.
Does or doesn't. Yeah. I like the pass there.
No blue mana. I don't think Joey's going to fall for it a second time, though. Here's Servant of the Conduit from Joey.
No interest in countering that one.
No. Land and a pass. So on our end step, we're going to see Fatal Push take care of the Servant. And Kevin has more. On end step, he's going to cycle a land.
Yeah, given those options, no mana going to waste on that turn. He has 1 or 2 more lands in his hand as well.
See Port Town from Kevin. Does have another land in hand. It's an island. Or it's a plains, rather. And Scrapheap Scrounger for Jones. See if he crews the vehicle. He will. Attack and swing, and Harness Lightning will end up taking it down. At some point, Kevin can't play around that.
Yeah, you can't just have the heart and never attack, especially if nothing else that you're doing is asking for a Harnessed Lightning.
Yeah. Kevin will establish the board, though. Scrapheap Scrounger and Thraben Inspector the plays. Gets a clue token. Joey's just a pass. It's Wandering Fumarole. Look to some of that, the sideboard we were talking about there, kill spells that she could bring in. Joey has for removal Magma Sprays, Cut to Ribbons, Confiscation Coups, Glory Bringers, Kozilek's Returns, up to 10 additional removal spells.
Glorybringer has been very impressive in these sorts of matchups every time that I've seen it.
A swing from Kevin, and a second Harness Lightning is cast by Joey, and that will destroy the Scrapheap Scrounger.
Though here, Kevin is leaving up this Avacyn mana. This would be a very bad spot for Glorybringer.
Yeah, notice that Kevin didn't use Avacyn to save the Scrapheap Scrounger there.
Yeah, that one comes back anyway. He can do better.
Yeah, though it technically doesn't come back yet. He does not have another creature in the graveyard.
He's got plenty of time, but you're right.
Here's Tireless Tracker from Manor. Land. It's a forest. He'll get a clue. Manor with only 1 card in hand, starting to run out of resources.
Tireless Tracker generally pretty good at solving that problem.
Yeah. We'll see if Kevin just end steps the Avacyn anyway.
If you expect that nothing's going on, just making a big clock, that seems significant. And yeah, there comes Avacyn. And Avacyn meets Harnessed Lightning.
Harness Lightning number 3 from Manor.
And Kevin has Declaration in stone. That'll clean it up, but it'll replace itself. Looks like Kevin also has drawn Kalitas. He has gone a little bigger in the sideboard.
And yeah, he'll cast Declaration of Stone on Tireless Tracker that exiles it away, but gives Joey a second clue. And the Thraben Inspector will attack in.
And Joey has a good amount of mana, but he needs to find something to get onto the battlefield pretty quick here. Not under a ton of pressure, but when Kevin starts gaining life, that can start to push this game out of reach. And I want to say Long Tusk Cub, one of the cards in the holding here. Yeah, just didn't have it early. Kept the hand because it had heavy on Harness Lightning.
See what Joey has back. Cracks one of his clue tokens. Long Tusk Cub. Okay, so most of the 2s are still in the deck for Joey.
Yeah, a lot of hands that don't have them are still very keepable.
Yeah. Long Tusk Cub is cast after he cracks 2 clues. 4 energy up. That's enough to where the Long Tusk Cub could outsize the Kalitas if Joey puts all his energy into it.
Yep. If Kevin could produce another Fatal Push, this would be a very good turn for him.
Dusk to Dawn drawn by Kevin there. Cracks the clue of his own. Not really something he wants to cast on the current board.
It's bad for him to cast and gets back Avison's Scrap Heap Scrounger as it stands.
Gets back nothing, right?
Oh, right. It gets back
You
little
get back
creatures.
the little ones, yeah.
I was so
Make
used
their
to seeing
hub.
the player pick up their graveyard, I forgot there was a restriction on it.
Oh, yeah, it's not just... Yeah, when you see it in Blue White Monument, that's more or less how it plays. It gets back all the cards in the deck. Here's Whirler Virtuoso from Manor. 8 energy available, so now 2 different ways to spend.
If the Long Tusk Cub gets pumped up, the Dusk is a little bit better.
Well, it's still... I would think that Kevin won't cast it until Joey removes Kalitas. That first half of Dusk to Dawn, destroying all creatures with power 3 or greater.
It does kill that one. If he puts the Kalitas in combat with the Cub, that would force some energy to go that way. That would mean that that energy can't be used to make Whirler Virtuoso tokens, and the Dusk just kills both creatures anyway.
Yeah, and this is be interesting to see if he does just that. It's a swing with Long Tusk Cub. In Kevin's spot, the Dusk to Dawn makes double blocking an option, but it looks like he'll just say no blocks. And that's dangerous. 2 pumps.
Kevin doesn't mind the pumping at all. The Cub does make more energy when it hits. That is a bit of a problem because the Virtuosos are going to start making tokens, and those are harder to deal with.
Joey up to 6 energy, so that's 2 tokens. Scrap Heap Scrounger back into play for Kevin, exiling Avison. So that suggests he doesn't really want to cast Dusk just yet, even though there's a 4/4 Cub.
Yeah, he does get to crack back for a decent chunk of damage.
And Spell Queller, the pickup for Jones.
That one is quality.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have great attacks here. Kalitas would end up just trading with Whirler Virtuoso.
Given that it's dying to the Dusk anyway, is that bad?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It really depends the strategy Kevin wants to use on this game.
Getting the Virtuoso off the table means that it has to be cashed in for whatever Thopters it's going to make now.
Right.
And then Kevin's clear to just cast the Dusk on this turn.
So Kevin will attack with Scrap Heap Scrounger. Looks like Joey takes the damage, goes to 15. We'll see how many Thopters he wants to make on the end step, if any.
If Joey draws some reasonably sized creature, say he commits another Tireless Tracker here, the Dusk does get better in those scenarios. So that would explain why you might want to wait a little bit. Also because the Kalitas is dying at the same time, get some zombies for your trouble.
So it leaves 3 energy up. 1 Thopter was made on end step.
Of course, Joey's hand looks completely terrible.
Well, it's a 2 and an Aether Hub, so it looks like a Thopter.
Right.
Which, okay. Not good.
Could be worse. Could just be lands that don't make energy.
Yeah, this is his 8th land that he's getting this turn, so Elder Deep Fiends can be hard cast now. Which in this matchup is just fine, if you have the mana to do it.
Yeah. Haven't seen Kozilek's return yet, but Elder Deep Fiend is still a very large creature.
And it's Long Tusk Cub and the Thopter token attacking in. That reserves there. 6 energy available for the Long Tusk Cub. I'm a little interested going back to that first turn where Kevin did not trade with Long Tusk Cub. I guess he never had the option. It was never a trade, really.
Right.
He'll chump block the Cub and take 1. Seems like Kevin's slowly letting his own board get traded away, and then he's going to try to use Dusk to Dawn to recover when all is said is done. Here is Scrap Heap Scrounger again attacking for Jones.
Second guessing that.
Well, why not? I think he'd be happy to trade with any of the Thopters. Not so happy that it ran into Wandering Fumarole. Joey making the right block there.
Yep. We gonna see Dusk yet? Nope. Gonna get further from wanting to cast Dusk.
Well, they're just Scroungers.
Yeah.
But I get your point. You're playing more 3-power creatures into a sweeper. Kevin has to sell it.
It's sold. It's
First match is done. James Higginbottom, after sideboarding, wins again. So 2-0, he defeats Tan and Grace over in the Legacy match.
So 2 wins on both sides of the table, though one of them is has amounted to a full match win. Harlan Fear and Kevin Jones still with work to do. They both need to win here. Okay, and it looks like Joey did pick up Tireless Tracker. So even though it will end up making a clue because of that forest, Kevin will get a little bit more value off of that Dusk.
Yeah, a big attack here for Joey. 1 Wandering Fumarole now enters combat. It's actually the only Fumarole he has. That one under it looks to be a Spire Bluff Canal. So Wandering Fumarole blocked by Kalitas. Those will trade. Or not. We'll see in a second here. As Joey continues to pump Long Tusk Cub. Kevin's really milking this Dusk to Dawn, and that may have sold it. The Kalitas kills the Fumarole and exiles it, so Kevin gets a zombie. And Joey, Tireless Tracker, land makes a clue, and Kevin's done it again here. He has set up a great Dusk to Dawn board.
Yeah, Spell Queller backup on top of it as well.
It's really nice. Swings with both Scrap Heap Scroungers.
Because of the lifelink on Kalitas, still in a reasonable position against the Thopters. In short order, he'll be able to reassemble those Scrap Heap Scroungers as well.
And you know, I don't even know if Joey expects Dusk to Dawn in the list.
With Kevin running so many 3-power creatures into it, it is a little surprising.
Yeah, but here it is. Boom. Dusk will kill both Scroungers, but the big one is it hits Tracker and Long Tusk Cub. Joey now playing off the top of the deck.
And Kevin got that Spell Queller.
Kevin at 11. Joey's going to spend all his remaining energy making Thopters.
Yeah, getting aggressive with what resources he has makes a lot of sense. But the Spell Queller does just get into combat with these Thopters, which is really nice for Kevin as well.
And if Joey... Okay, crack a clue. He doesn't want to play a spell before attacking here.
Right.
You don't want to pre-combat that Tireless Tracker. Which is what he drew off the clue token. We'll see if Kevin has if Kevin is going to ambush or whether he'll just take 3. He just takes 3. Oh, wow. Kevin is on fire right now. Here's Tireless Tracker, and Kevin has the Spell Queller.
Another great sequence by Kevin Jones.
Yeah. Gets the Tireless Tracker. Joey's last card in hand was a land. Kevin draws another Spell Queller.
All right, and now he'll be able to start getting those Scroungers back.
Yeah.
This game, his life total is relatively low, but he's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah.
He does have to fade Glorybringer. That would break this game pretty wide open.
Scrap Heap Scrounger for Kevin Jones. That one from hand. See if he wants to attack yet with Spell Queller. He'll pass. It looks like he's content to just grind the board down with Scrap Heap Scroungers, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, can't really start attacking with the Queller. You got to block these Thopters. He's at 8. It also helps sell that he doesn't have another Spell Queller.
And another Tireless Tracker from Joey is going to hit another Spell Queller from Kevin. And just says go. One step, Kevin will bring back one of the Scroungers. And that'll do, makes the 3-2. Back over to Jones. And in the modern match, James Wohlomacher gets a game with his Abzan deck, so he and Harlan Fear will be headed to a deciding game 3. And it looks like if Kevin can pull this out, get this one taken care of, everything will hinge on that modern game.
Yeah, Abzan versus Jeskai. That matchup, it can be quite difficult. You know, Lingering Souls is very powerful, though. Harlan certainly has a lot of powerful cards on the top end himself.
Kevin's going to attack with these 2 Scroungers. And Joey will trade the Whirler Virtuoso for one of them. Taking the 3, that'll drop Joey to 6.
And nice follow-up for Kevin Jones. Heart of Kiran.
Heart of Kiran. Kevin has a lot of flying blockers or flying attackers, whichever he'd like here.
And here is a sad long tusk cub. Whirler Virtuoso spent all of its energy. 2-2 for Joey Manor.
Just a 2-2 left. And Kevin will bring back another Scrounger.
Yeah, for this one, exiles a different Scrounger. Leaves Thraben Inspector in his graveyard in case he wants to don it back. If these Spell Quellers were to die, you know, Dawn would be what he'd be leaning on.
Yeah, it has drew for the turn. It was another Spell Queller. Two creatures will crew the Heart of Kiran, and Kevin will attack with 2 Scroungers and the vehicle.
Does not want to attack with Spell Quellers while there's 3 Thopters there.
Sure. Long Tusk Cub trades with a Scrounger. Heart of Kiran wins combat against a Thopter. Joey not taking damage yet. Actually took 3 there, goes to 3. Casts Rogue Refiner.
That one seems quellable.
Yeah, Kevin will counter that one too. And Joey's last card is just a mountain, so that is going to be the match. Kevin Jones, your 2-0 winner over Joey Manor. So he'll win a match for his team, which means it's going to be down to Harlan Fear and James Wohlomacher to finish this one out.
Yeah, this Esper aggro deck, it certainly sees less play than Maru vehicles, but Kevin looked really good in that game.
Well, you play Esper so that you can have Spell Queller. That's the big gain from blue. And in both games 1 and 2, the Spell Quellers looked fantastic.
Absolutely. And speaking of Spell Queller, going to the modern table, Harlan Fear, Jeskai also on 4 copies of the card.
Yeah, 4 more of them there.
Tannin Grace not playing any in Legacy. That's why he lost.
A little slow.
Trades with Insectile Aberration.
Yep.
So, you know, lot to like.
Jace unsummons it. That stinks. All right, so Jeskai Control versus Abzan is going to be our match here. We're post sideboard. Remember, Wohlomacher's Abzan deck, a little lower to the ground, but he'll play Fulminator Mage as the first one here. And Harlan, he rather likes his lands. He'll cast Logic Knot.
Yeah, that early Fulminator Mage, something of a must counter.
Yeah.
Harlan really needs to develop his mana.
This is interesting. This was a concern, I think, to life points. So Harlan had the option of shocking for 1 mana, for shocking or delving a card in his graveyard. He actually delved the card instead of taking 2 damage.
Sure, not a huge expense for him. This list is not very heavy on Logic Knot. There are 2 more copies in the main deck.
Okay.
He can't Snapcaster Mage's Scalding Tarn.
And go over to Harlan. He'll land and pass. Had picked up a copy of Spell Queller. Harlan was on the play for this game. So we continue on. And it'll be Collective Brutality from James, picking the discard mode. Looks at Kevin's hand. We will do the same. It's got Path to Exile and Lightning Helix. The last cards are an Island, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, and a Spell Queller.
And really the best cards here are the
ones he
cards
can't take.
that he cannot take.
Yeah. Still gets Path to Exile and also gets the information out of it.
Knows about Spell Queller.
Yeah.
That is significant. Lightning Helix is not at its best in this matchup.
You know, that's been, for me, looking at some of these burn decks and Jeskai decks, I'm feeling that way every round about the card.
Yeah. It's not a card that I'm thrilled about in Modern currently, but Elspeth Sun's Champion, if Harlan's able to cast that one, that's real nice.
Tarmogoyf into Spell Queller. This is a Queller that James knew about. Not too much of a loss there.
Yeah, and it looks like James has Liliana of the Veil in hand. He's setting up for that.
Yeah, Liliana of the Veil, Abrupt Decay, and Knight of the Reliquary. Plus Overgrown Tomb. Those are James's 4 cards.
Harlan wants 1 land somewhere in the top 2 cards of his deck. Lightning Bolt up the top. That one's pretty weak here.
Yeah, the Knight of the Reliquary will be a 4/4. It can finish off a Liliana, which is fine.
Yep. Yeah, the Helix had that covered.
Well, watch the board here. The interesting one to see is how James is going to beat this Elspeth Sun's Champion in Harlan's hand. He knows about it.
Yeah. Harlan really wants to draw a land, does not want it to be Celestial Colonnade or one of these 2 Spire Bluff Canals.
Liliana of the Veils, the play from Wohlomacher. -2. Looks like the play you want on the board.
Yep.
We'll see if James agrees. It resolves.
Yeah, if you plus it, it just gets attacked by the Spell Queller.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't...
Conferring with his team. A little curious to decide on casting Liliana, but not having an idea of what mode you want.
Yeah, this is the discussion. You'd like to do this before casting it.
Yeah.
I don't mind the play, though. Liliana taking care of Spell Queller on its surface looks pretty good.
And because of the Spell Queller attacking the Liliana, plussing looks pretty bad.
All right. See Tarmogoyf there. The Liliana down to 1.
Seems reasonable for Harlan to use Lightning Helix to finish off the Liliana here.
Tarmogoyf currently at 4/5.
Creature, sorcery, land, instant.
And James just play a second Tarmogoyf. I'm surprised about the second Tarmogoyf here. Harlan helixes the Liliana.
Betting against that land.
Yeah.
Can he beat Elspeth, really?
No, and it's not a land, it's a Lightning Helix for fear. Now facing down 10 power of Tarmogoyfs. His 2 burn spells can team up to take care of one of them. Doesn't really want to do it, though. That opens him up to Liliana.
Yeah, another Liliana just discarding there would be unfortunate. You can't just die, though. This is a 2-turn clock.
Swing for 10 from Wohlomacher. Harlan will go to 10. Gets one more chance at the untapped land. Or not. Thoughtseize the play from Wohlomacher.
Yeah, 0 more chances.
Yeah, that'll take the Planeswalker, and that is not what Fear wanted to see at all.
And Fear's deck is a lot more tempo and burn oriented. No sweeper effects in the 75, no Supreme Verdicts here. And this is the 1 Elspeth Suns champion. So this Thoughtseize is a disaster for Harlan.
Deciding if he wants to use some burn. I mean, you just have to assume that
I really
Elspeth's the card that's getting taken here, right?
Really like the team dynamic here.
This is a
Kevin's kind of whispering into his hand, getting close, and Tannen is just openly talking to the entire table. Yeah, you're just dead, right?
Knight of the Reliquary from Wohlomacher. Now, Harlan does not play any copies of Supreme Verdict.
Don't you not have sweepers or more Elspeths?
No, he's going for burn.
Yeah, choosing to go upstairs.
There's Cryptic Command from Fear.
Okay, that's a time walk.
It's a fog.
It replaces itself. It's a time walk.
Yeah.
More creatures don't matter.
Cryptic Command from Fear's tap draw. Find Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, that one's late.
Inkster Kozilek. Harlan will bolt in response. Wohlomacher down to 6.
Needs more cryptics, needs more lightning bolts.
Electrolyze. That could get him closer. Now remember, he's got to get all the burn this turn because otherwise, well, first of all, he's dead on the board. Second of all, James can use Vault of the Archangel to gain a lot of life.
Yeah, Electrolyze can't redraw into Cryptic Command.
Yeah, Electrolyze upstairs. James is at 4.
Yeah, only 2 more mana available for
Harlan.
Harlan.
I'm not sure if he has a draw here. It's certainly not Celestial Colonnade, and that'll be the match. So, despite losing in the 7-0 bracket, they come back to finish strong at 8-1 and a tie for second. There's the team of Jim Higginbottom, James Wohlomacher, and Joey Manor.
Yeah, Kevin.